every Thursday night from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock. A few introductory remarks. We'll have the audience, you folks out there, call in and have a discussion and debate on the issues today. And the two topics today are single-payer healthcare, that's SB 562 in California, which just passed the California Senate. It's on its way to the Assembly now, and if the state Assembly passes it, it'll go to the governor's desk for signature, and it'll become law, and California will become the first state to have a comprehensive, universal, single-payer healthcare system in place, and will lead the way in the United States and show the federal government how to do it. So we're looking forward to the discussion on single-payer healthcare. We have some guests here will be calling in, and the other issue is the state chair of the California Democratic Party election race that was held a couple of weeks ago at the Sacramento State Convention of the Democratic Party. The state chair election was quite problematic, to say the least. And the folks that are our guests today will tell you more about it. First of all, the results were that the candidate who was a progressive candidate, the one who refused corporate money and lobbyist money, and who actually had a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters among the delegates, was Kimberly Ellis. And she lost the election officially by 62 votes out of 3,000 votes. That's got to be less than 0.5%. And yet there was an audit that was called for, an audit which was not fully complied with as far as the equipment that was needed for the audit, was not provided fully as to what the Ellis campaign needed in order to have a full audit that would have good faith and that people could trust as an accurate audit and a final count could have been held. That wasn't done, apparently. These folks on that side, the Kimberly Ellis side, are quite concerned that justice has not been served in the election process for the California Democratic State Party chair. The person that won the seat of this chair, who won just by 62 votes or so out of 3,000 votes, and there were many irregularities that were counted by people who were discontented with the results. So we will look and talk about those issues regarding the California State Democratic Party chair election held just a couple of weeks ago in Sacramento. Okay, folks, so it's going to be a good evening, a very hot topic discussion night, two different major topics that are in the news today, other than what happened today with James Comey's testimony in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which was like the talk of the land. Almost everyone was watching it, I think, pretty much. A lot of people were watching it on TV. All the mainstream media carried James Comey's testimony today. And I will be on tomorrow morning on KTLA, Channel 5, 8:35 a.m., to discuss the results of the James Comey testimony and the implications of what happened today for American politics and for the integrity of our process. We'll also look at 3 losers and 3 winners of the whole process of today's discussion and hearings of Director Comey in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee. That'll be tomorrow morning, 8:35 a.m., Channel 5. I'll be on there for 5 minutes or so discussing these issues. So if you want to tune in tomorrow morning, that's fine. If not, we'll catch it later on. But right now, it's most important to focus on the single-payer healthcare principle or concept, which, by the way, our neighbor Canada is the best example of, one that has worked for over 30, 40 years in Canada. Single-payer universal healthcare, which is a system that's funded fully by taxpayers, a progressive tax. So wealthier taxpayers will pay more than the middle class or the poor to fund this system. And when the funding is brought in by the federal government in Canada, the money is then distributed among all the provinces in Canada, the states or provinces, according to need and population. And the provincial government, or in the United States we call it state government, would administer the plan, where the doctors and nurses have unions in Canada. They get together and they've unified into representation. And the doctors and nurses bargain with the government agency that runs the healthcare system for fee for service, for a specific dollar amount per service that the doctors will perform for the next full year, and that also the nurses will perform. It's a privately delivered system, but it's publicly funded for the insurance part of it. The doctors and nurses then get paid directly for every single service they perform, with no middle person, no profit-making HMO sucking up the healthcare dollar, no health insurance companies gouging and taking all the profits away from the service itself. Doctors and nurses and the clinics and the hospital do it to run the system. And in Canada, every single person is covered with no co-payments, no deductibles, can be treated no limits as to how much the treatment will cost or what it takes to keep someone healthy or to help to heal them from a very drastic disease. No pre-existing conditions, No long waiting lines, as you've heard through propaganda in Canada. No long waiting lines in Canada to see a doctor. Compare that to some of the lines that we have to wait for a year to get an appointment with someone, and compare the healthcare system that we have today, which is really a remnant of the Obamacare, with the Trump and the Trump forces trying to completely dismantle the Obamacare, what little protection, social protection Obamacare had, to be dismantled by the Trump people right now in power. So we are in a very critical state with healthcare, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the fork in the road. As the Chinese word for crisis indicates, there are two parts of the Chinese Mandarin language word for crisis: danger and opportunity. And we are in that fork in the road. And those two items are ones that we have to look at carefully. We must overcome the danger, seize the opportunity to put in a really viable, comprehensive, humane healthcare system that will work the most efficiently. Because, by the way, in Canada, 2/3 per person to cover every single person in Canada and cover them fully in healthcare. That does in the United States. In the United States, we don't cover everyone, and we still cost us here 1.5 times per person as much as in Canada. It's twice as much as in England, which has a socialized medicine system, where the government pretty much runs the entire public national health system. It's called the National Health Service. And doctors and nurses are employees of the government. They get paid very well. Hospitals are built, maintained by the government. Equipment is provided by the government. Medical schools are funded by the government. That's the most socialized system in Britain, and it costs half as much as it does here. In Canada, you have a private system of delivery, but a public system of insurance, as we are trying to get in California with SB 562. Senator Ricardo Lara of Bell Gardens and Long Beach has actually written this bill and got co-sponsors, and he shepherded the bill through the Senate and was passed by a large majority. So now it's on its way to the Assembly to be introduced there and to be debated and discussed. And many of us who support SB 562 are afraid that in the Assembly we're going to run up into a lot more roadblocks, because the Assembly is a lot more controlled by wealthy special interests and donors, corporate donors, including insurance companies, HMOs, and those kinds of entities that don't want much change. The pharmaceuticals are making huge profits on drug prices, whereas in the socialized system, the Medicare for all government funded healthcare insurance system bargains with the pharmaceutical companies to keep the prices of pharmaceutical drugs low and affordable. So in Canada, it costs a fraction for a prescription drug that you would get in Canada, the same drug that you would get in the United States. It costs a fraction over there compared to here. And you have Americans riding buses in droves across the border to Canada and purchasing the prescription drugs every month for much less cost because of the Medicare for all socialized insurance system. The rest of the system is private. Doctors and nurses are private entrepreneurs who can perform surgeries and get paid the contract price for the year for each surgery performed, and the government pays them a check right away and directly. That's a single-payer healthcare system in operation. So rather than continuing to go on, I'd like to invite people in the audience to please get ready to pick up your cell phones, your landline, whatever you have, and dial this number, 562-234-3319. Area code 562-234-3319. Dial it, I'll pick it up, and we'll put you on one after the other into a conference call, and we'll all be on this together, discussing and debating how the single-payer healthcare system will work. I've invited some folks from that group that's very active in promoting the single-payer system to be on the show. So as soon as they get this message, maybe they're watching right now, they can start calling in right away. Have the phone ready to go, and we will have it moving, and you will hear it ringing pretty shortly, hopefully. There it is, there it is, there we go. The first call coming in. Hello, good evening. You're on with Peter Mathews, Economic and Social Justice. Who's speaking, please?
Yes, this is Yosh Yamanaka.
Good evening, Yosh. How are you, sir?
Very good, Peter. How are you doing?
Doing really well, thank you. Things have been really heating up with the Comey testimony. I've been on the airwaves, actually on the television waves on that. I'll be on there tomorrow morning again on KTLA. But let's talk about single-payer healthcare at this point, Yosh. That's a very important, long-lasting issue we have to deal with. And tell us about SB 562.
Sure. As you mentioned a few minutes ago, SB 562, the Healthy California Act, did pass its first hurdle, or actually a series of hurdles in the Senate in Sacramento, and it did pass the Senate, and now it goes to the Assembly. And we've got a very critical vote coming up in the Assembly Health Committee on or before July the 14th. So
Okay.
I'm urging encouraging everyone who's viewing or listening to this program to call your local assembly person, assembly member, and urge them to support SB 562.
And will it have the same number, the same designation in the assembly as well, Yosh? So
Yes,
SB 562.
Yes, that's
okay.
one of the peculiarities of the California law. Even though SB 562 originated in the Senate and is now transferred to the Assembly, it retains its same designation as a Senate bill, even though it is now being considered in the Assembly.
Very good. That's really great because it comprehensive single payer health insurance and health coverage, right?
That is correct. And in case your listening audience are not aware of who their assembly member is, they can go to a website called findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. Findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov. There you enter in your address, and it will tell you who your assembly member and your senator are, and you can go from there to contacting them, calling them directly.
Yes, and it provides their phone number. It provides their phone number, Yosh, the phone number of the assembly member and the senator.
Yes, that's right. Well, we don't need to phone the senators at this point. At some point, if it does pass the assembly, then 562 will return to the Senate, but we are not quite at that stage yet. All the effort should be right now
on the assembly.
Yes, and we here in Southern California have a golden opportunity because there are 9 Democratic members in the Assembly Health Committee, and of those 9 Democratic members, 5 of them represent districts in Southern California.
Oh, fantastic!
If I can go further, there is a Monique Limon who represents Santa Barbara and Ventura. There's Autumn Burke of Englewood, Sebastian Ridley Thomas of Culver City and Baldwin Hills, Miguel Santiago of Koreatown and Huntington Park, and Sharon Quirk Silva representing Fullerton and Buena Park. So those
are very important members of the Assembly on the Health Committee, right?
That is correct, because that is the first hurdle. If it doesn't clear the Health Committee, then I think the legislation is pretty much dead for this legislative session. So we've got to crank up the heat and make those phone calls into your assembly members. And if I can add something, there seems to be some confusion as to whether it's better to write to your assembly member or visit their office or any number of things. And I've been told by insiders that the most effective way to influence legislation is to flood their telephone lines, because a letter nearly gets filed in, let's say, a file called healthcare. And if and when the healthcare bill comes up in front of the assembly, then the assembly member will look at that stack of letters that you've written in regarding healthcare. On the other hand, if you phone in, your phone call regarding SB 562 is immediately recorded by the person taking your phone call.
Okay.
And they have a day-to-day, running.
Yes, that's the most effective way is make that phone call, that live phone call. Yosh, you're absolutely right. And the senators, the assembly members know that for every phone call that comes in like that on the phone, they're at least feel the same way who haven't made the call, so they know that there's a certain amount of momentum. That's right. Everyone should pick up their phone and call their state assembly person at this time, and particularly these 5 assembly people in Southern California who are on the Health Committee, and that's the major hurdle right now to get this bill through the Health Committee. And there are 9 Democrats from Southern California. Is there any hope for any of the Republicans to at all consider supporting this single-payer bill?
It won't hurt to try to lean on your Republican assembly member. I don't know how helpful that will be. Our best chances of success of persuading an assembly member is by phoning and flooding the Democratic assembly members' offices. But
that's true, and that's because of the numbers. Yoshi, if I'm interrupting a bit, I wanted to say that the state assembly and state senate have 2/3 majority Democratic Party. Am I right? Democratic majority is 2/3. It's a huge majority this time around. So you're right about focusing on the Democratic assembly members at this point. That's the most effective thing to do right now. And by the way, the Republicans as a whole are not disposed in their own philosophy towards single-payer health care. So you don't want to spend a lot of energy on them. They're in the minority right now, and 2/3 majority are Democrats. Would you say that's the way to go? Yeah. And it doesn't matter what party you are as a voter. You're a voter. You can vote for anyone in the primaries, and they know that.
Correct. And sure, even if you're a Republican or a Green or a Libertarian, you can still pick up the phone and call your assembly member and say, I'm your constituent, and I urge you to support SB 562.
That's right. That is the best thing to do. Great advice, Yosh. Any other details you want to talk about, or is anyone else on the line coming? By the way, anyone can call in now because we put you on a conference call with Yosh and me and a few other people together so we can have a conference on this show. So feel free to call in at this time right now if you wanted. 562-234-3319. 562-234-3319. Perhaps Yosh has a few more words to add about this to clarify.
Sure. I will say that, probably the biggest stumbling block in the legislature is the cost of health care or single payer SB 562 in California. And the LA Times came out with a quote from the legislative analyst saying that single payer would cost an estimated $400 billion per year. And a lot of people went through the roof, mostly, Republican senators went through the roof saying $400 billion, that would totally destroy the state budget. What they failed to consider and swept under the rug was the fact that we already pay a substantial amount
already.
A substantial portion of that $400 billion. It's an estimated, let me see if I got that figure here. It's an estimated $368.5 billion that we are presently paying. So you can see that 368 out of 400 takes us a great, about 90% there.
Yes, and by the way, what we're doing today and what we pay in the $368 billion is so inefficiently used that it does not cover everyone. It leaves millions of people uncovered and undercovered. So you take this system and make it more efficient, and you'll actually save about $38 billion is what I saw that you'd save if you went to a single payer system. You would pay that much less into the healthcare premiums, which includes your employer. So if your employer is paying part of your premium or all of it, you could ask your employer for a raise because he or she will not have to pay it anymore, right? How about that?
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. Actually, all businesses in California should be 100% in favor of SB 562 because all businesses will experience a dividend by providing universal health care for all Californians. According to the specialists that were hired to do the analysis for 562, they estimate that small businesses would experience a 22% decrease in payroll costs.
Look at that.
Pardon me?
I said, look at that. That's huge.
All right. Medium-sized businesses with anywhere from 10 to 19 employees would save 13.5% of payroll costs. Businesses with 20 to 100 employees would save 6.8% of payroll. Large businesses with 100 to 500 employees would save 5.7% of their payroll, and businesses with over 500 employees would save 0.6%. Now, 0.6% is not a huge chunk, but the point is that every single business, regardless of size, would be saving money, their payroll costs, by eliminating, their employees' healthcare insurance plans because the state would be picking it up.
That's right, and those businesses will become more competitive against other countries. Let me tell you something. Give you some numbers on this. Very interesting. that in Canada, since they have had a single-payer system for over 40 years, it costs $1,000 to $2,000 less to produce an automobile than it does in the United States. Because we here, our employers are paying for the health care costs, which keeps skyrocketing every year, up to 12% per year higher now. It's been going up from, since Obamacare was brought in, it reduced the inflation of healthcare from 12% per year down to 5%, but gradually started creeping up under Obamacare as well. Now it's about 10% higher every year. And our employers are having to pay so much of that money out of their own pocket, which makes them have to pass it on in the product that they produce. So if an automobile is produced in the United States, it's going to cost $1,000 to $2,000 more per car when the car is sold on the market, which makes the American-produced car less competitive than the Canadian-produced counterpart in the same model year and everything else. So that's a good point you're making, Yosh. This will relieve the employers and make them more competitive.
Right. Actually, General Motors and Ford and Chrysler are at a competitive disadvantage, not only with regards to cars made in Canada, but also with regards to cars made in Japan and Germany,
where they all have healthcare, universal healthcare paid by the government or the people, as opposed to the business. You're right. So that is something you got to consider as well. Go ahead.
There's a lot of facts and figures, a lot of numbers, lots of $1 billion going this way and that way. And if your listening audience would like to actually see the figures in front of them, we've got those posted on our Facebook. If you'll go to Our Revolution Long Beach in your Facebook search, and you will see that we've got those two breakouts for households and for businesses. And you can see the charts on how, different households would experience a windfall, just as all of the businesses would experience a windfall.
Okay, so let's repeat that again. Our Revolution Long Beach, detailed information about this healthcare SB 562 and what benefits it would actually give us. California, no co-payments, no deductibles when you see the doctor, when you have this place in place. So we got to work on the assembly right now, especially because that's the next stage. You get it passed through the assembly, then it goes to reconciliation in the two houses, and then once again it's passed by a simple majority vote, and then the governor signs it. And we've got to get Jerry Brown on board if he's here. Still.
I'm sorry, Peter. I have to interject. I think it won't be a 50% plus vote. It will probably require a 2/3 vote because.
It involves taxes.
An increase, right?
Because it involves taxes and revenue. Correct. 2/3 vote per house.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
and the good thing is we have,
and
2/3 of each house are made up of Democrats. But many Democrats, unfortunately, or some of them, are sponsored by pharmaceutical companies, health insurance companies, and HMOs, and that puts the screws on them in terms of their freedom to act on behalf of the California people, unless we stand up. That's what our revolution is all about. Our revolution says that we, the people, have to take the power back by ensuring and insisting that the elected officials will serve us and not the big corporations that fund them. It doesn't matter if you're an assemblyman or person, a woman is funded by the big companies or not at this point. We want universal health care, single payer right now. The majority of California wants it, and we should speak out, and that's where the phone calls start coming in and should go on out, as Yosh was saying, right away, immediately, to your state assembly person. So if anyone knows any of the names of the assembly people, you mentioned the ones on the health committee, and that's, can you repeat those 5 assembly people again who are on the health committee?
Sure, that would be Monique Limon, Autumn Burke, Sebastian Ridley Thomas, Miguel Santiago, and Sharon Quirk Silva. But if you're unsure of your assembly person, then all you have to do is go to findyourrep.legislature.ca.gov and type in your address, and up will pop your senator and your assembly member.
Excellent. And that's the way to go. So go on that website and get it, and you'll be able to find your state assembly person, and specifically these 5 that are right here in Southern California that are on the health committee, which is the immediate crucial step to get it passed to that committee. So thank you very much, Yosh. You can stay on if you like. We're going to be talking now about what you were part of as well, I understand, in Sacramento a couple of weeks ago. We've got some other guests coming in, Julian Berger from the Progressive Democratic Club, and other people are coming in soon calling in to discuss this issue of what happened in the race between Kimberly Ellis for state chair and Eric Bauman for state chair, the two candidates that ran, and the race was decided by the Democratic Party leadership, apparently, that Bauman won the race, they said, by 62 votes or so out of 3,000 votes. Is that right? Yosh, it was about 62 out of 3,000. And yet, now tell us, update us to where we stand right now in terms of the appeal or the audit appeal.
Well, the audit, well, it's not an audit. It was a review according to the Democratic Party. The review has been concluded, and at the conclusion of the review, Kimberly Ellis and her team filed an appeal. And the appeal is still pending. I don't believe there's a definitive act and action by the party, although there seems to be a lot of resistance. But I don't, as of this, to my knowledge, the appeal is still pending. There's not been a final determination, yay or nay.
Okay, can you tell us, or if Julian Berger's listening and he can call in, he's the person also who was up there at Sacramento, or maybe you could start off, Yosh, with it. What are some of the appeal points that Kimberly Ellis' campaign was making regarding the election outcome and the process?
I believe that there were certain delegates who were improperly appointed. There were certain proxies who were improperly appointed. I've heard that there were some duplicate signatures. In other words, one person might have signed as a delegate from, say, Assembly District 70 and simultaneously signed a different card saying they were a representative from Assembly District 64.
Oh, wow.
So there were a number of irregularities, and it seems quite likely that if all of those appeals or if all of the discrepancies were thrown out, then I believe that Kimberly Ellis would probably win. But until there's some sort of definitive action, and hopefully we won't end up in the courts on this matter, because that could end up to be an expensive proposition, and the Democratic Party has a lot more money than Kimberly Ellis has in her campaign, so we'd rather avoid that public display of discord.
Right, and any way you look at it, there has to be a clean accounting of an election such as this, because the very credibility of democracy here is at stake. If the Democratic Party that takes on the name from democracy cannot prove beyond any kind of a doubt that it's above board and fair in counting votes and allowing a fair and even-handed assessment and competition between candidates running for a specific office in the party, then that's not a Democratic Party. It's not it's not worthy of its name, Democratic Party. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I'm not sure you are, Yosh, but I started off my political activism with George McGovern, the anti-war, peace and justice candidate, Senator George McGovern, way back in 1972 when he ran for the presidency against Richard Nixon. My roommate in college, my college roommate, was a state delegate, a McGovern delegate to the state party convention to elect the national delegates in Texas. We're from I went to school in Texas, and that was where we got started. So I've been a lifelong Democrat. I've never left the party, no matter the fact that there's been some corruption in that party, in our party, as well as in the other parties. The Republican Party is not immune from that kind of corruption, dollar democracy, as I call it. But we want to make sure the Democratic Party lives up to its name. A phone call is coming in. Let me pull this person in here. This might be, let me see, 1 second, if you don't mind. Yes, let's. Oh, is that your phone number? Yosh, is your phone number 310-305-8602?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, then there was another call beeping in, but I'll get it in a sec. Let me see here. Hello? No, I'm afraid we lost both people. Let's see if we can call back. Just get Yosh back again.
Hello?
Okay, sorry about that, Yosh. I cut you off while we were trying to pick up the other person, but they'll call back again. So the whole idea here is to make sure that any election internally within the party or externally throughout the United States and California has to be fair. And there's another call coming in. 1 second. Okay.
Justice, who's this?
This is Tony
Tony Castro, yes, sir. You're on with me and with Yosh Yamanaka.
Hello, Yosh. Hello, Peter.
Tony Castro.
Calling from City of Orange County.
Yes. We were just finishing up talking about the single-payer healthcare bill that has passed the California Senate, SB 562, and we're moving on to talk about the Democratic Party problems with the outcome of the chairpersonships election that's being on appeal right now.
Those are definitely issues that they directly affect my daily life.
Wow.
And I'm a Democrat.
Yes.
I'm also a high propensity voter, so I actually vote to the Democrat impact unless you actually vote.
Take part in voting, yeah.
High propensity is high, so I voted 4 out of 4 last elections. In fact, I voted in every election I've ever been eligible to vote in, ever. Even through absentee, vote by mail if I'm on vacation. I miss my own birthday, but I never miss an election.
Okay, so you're concerned about whether the Democratic Party will remain democratic, meaning honor every single vote in a legitimate way and have the rule of law principle as its basis, right? You want the Democratic Party to be a Democratic Party, to be really democratic, small, lowercase d.
Democratic voters need to do more than just be registered to vote. They need to remember to get out there and vote as well.
Well, do you want the voters do you want the party to be accountable to the Democratic voters also, and to all the voters? In other words, don't we need to have internal? Yeah, wait a minute. Let me finish my question, if you don't mind. We have to have internal democracy within the party first, and then the party can be projecting and to be a Democratic Party for all the Californians. Well, right? But you have to have internal democracy. You have to be sure that the party chair is elected fairly and equitably and without cheating, without any kind of double voting and things that Yosh was talking about in the challenge that's going on right now. Go ahead, Yosh, and Tony. Go ahead, Tony. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, those are great points you're mentioning, and definitely I wanted to talk more about the healthcare issue. Right now is time for not just the Democrats in office, but for everybody to start pushing it for healthcare, because if it's being proposed, if it's being introduced, if we actually have people in Senate, people at the federal level talking about pushing for a good healthcare bill, then right now it's time to really not to relax. No, people shouldn't relax and just wipe the sweat off their forehead and just think, okay, everything's under control. Good news is going. This is just news. It's not. And right now, it's just it hasn't taken. It's not in effect yet. So right now, it's like Yosh was mentioning. Pick up the phone, make a phone call, call your senator, call your congressman, congresswoman, congressperson, call up at the federal level, at the state level, mainly at the federal level. But this is now that this is actually being introduced and it's actually on the table, we need to we need to lead, so hopefully the leaders will follow. And we need to now voice our opinion very strongly and almost with to say with a bullhorn almost, and let these leaders know, yes, this is something we want. We need this.
Yes. Okay. If you don't
push them.
Yes, absolutely correct. Let me just do a little clarification, if you don't mind, on the tactical part of the side of the whole issue. Right now, at the federal level, there is a bill, a single-payer bill, that's been introduced in the House years ago by Congressman John Conyers, HB 676, single payer, a lot like the California bill. However, that bill has been languishing, and there seems to be less organized support at that level at this time. But so right now, I would say tactically, we progressives here in California especially should focus on the bill at the state level, the SB 562 that already has passed the state Senate all the way through. The Senate has actually voted for it. So now there's only another stage. The second stage is to get the Assembly to vote for it. And there's a preliminary stage where we want the Health Committee of the Assembly to pass it through the Health Committee into the Assembly for the discussion, debate, and vote. So there are certain stages that, tactically speaking, we got to focus. If we go all over the place and just pick up phone calls and start to call your congressmen and senators all over the United States, that is probably not the best tactic right now to win this thing for us Californians and pave the way, the path for the rest of the country.
We only have so much
time and energy.
And time and effort, and we got to put it in the most efficient and something that's going to be the most effective.
And that's why I would say I would agree with Yosh to pick up the phone and call your state assembly person all over California, tell them to get behind this bill, and most importantly, call those 5 assembly members in Southern California that are on the health committee, and he mentioned them already, and we could call those folks and say, listen, you got to get on it and pass this through the health committee onto the floor of the assembly for full debate and vote, so it'll be passed into law, into second stage, which is getting both houses to pass it by 2/3 majority, and then having the governor sign it. So it's step by step, Tony. You're right about being active, though. And like you said, Gandhi once said, if the people lead, it's actually when the people lead, the leaders will follow. When the people lead, the leaders will follow. I love it. I love that. I'm glad you brought that back up again. Yosh, you still there? Is Yosh still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, and you might want to add some things. Tony, go ahead. Both of you guys, talk to each other.
Yeah, sure. I was walking down the street and passed by this. It was Janet Nguyen. I think she's a congresswoman or something. I was passing by her office, and there's a lot of.
She's a state senator.
State senator. Okay, yeah. And outside of her office, it looked like people had been there right before I got there, and maybe they just left. They had laid their bodies down and traced it in chalk, and they wrote messages inside. One of them says, "I'm gonna die without health care," and they're trying to they're leaving messages in front of her office.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting, and I actually walked in. I walked in to the office and I asked I guess the legislative assistants, I'm not sure what you call them, but I asked them, what is all this? Why are they writing? Why are they writing this on the ground? Who's writing this, and why are they writing it? He wouldn't give me a clear answer, but I figured it out. Apparently, she's probably not supporting. Maybe to go in the direction that we would like to see for healthcare to go in.
Right, Tony?
I thought that was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Tony, could I ask you when that would be? That's what we would call a die-in, and I'm wondering when did you see these chalk marks? Because Janet Nguyen voted no. She serves on the Senate.
I think it was like on the second, like on the 1st or the 2nd of this month.
Okay, sure. She voted. She voted both in the Senate Health Committee and in the Senate chamber as a whole. She voted against SB 562. So she is a Republican, and
so it's civil disobedience.
She's my state senator, and I called her office. I called her office several times, and the last time, which was I guess just before the Senate voted on June the 1st, I asked her staff member whether she has changed her mind on SB 562, and staff member said no. As far as he knew, she is still opposed to 562, and that was her position, at the end of May and the beginning of June. Now, I don't know if we will ever change her mind before. Well,
I'm in your neighboring district. If you got Janet Nguyen, I have Lou Correa.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me ask you this, gentlemen, both of you. Do either of you know why Janet Nguyen is against SB 562? Have you asked her, Yosh, as a constituent, why is my state senator against SB 562?
I have to confess, although I listened to her arguments, when she was live when she was from the Senate, and I confess I don't remember what her main arguments were. I believe it was a question of costs, and she doesn't believe that we can afford it. But
cost. Then that makes me bring up a point. Cost. So now, whose cost and whose expense? Now, maybe her donors. We could see who's donating money. Maybe could have cost them profit. Maybe
I'm not sure.
I urge the voters in that district look up the electronic campaign filings and contributions. You can look those up online and see where the money came from. It may have came from healthcare industry. Maybe she has her hands tied. Maybe she has conflict of her interest. Maybe. But I would like to remind the audience.
Wait, Tony, before you go there, Tony, if you don't mind, please. I want to what you just said. I need to give the source. You haven't. I'll give you 3 websites, audience, and Tony and Yosh. 3 websites to go and do exactly what Tony recommended. Look up, follow the money, find out where the money is coming for these elected officials to vote the way that they do. Who's pulling their strings? Here it is. One website is called followthemoney.org. That's right, followthemoney.org. Another one is called maplight.org, maplight, maplight.org. And a third one that deals with federal elections as well, and interest groups and lobbyists, is opensecrets.org, opensecrets.org. Those are excellent websites, Tony, for people to follow exactly what you recommended, sir.
I was thinking of starting up a website that also shows that type of information. I haven't started it yet. This is kind of a joke, but it might be called who'syourdaddy.com.
I've definitely used that phrase before.
They're donors. Their donors are their daddy. The big corporations are the senators and congressmen's daddy. That's who it is, because that's where they're getting their money from. They need, hey, daddy, I need some money for ice cream. Ice cream ads outside, ice cream truck. So they need their money for the campaign for re-election. So maybe I might look up that domain.
There you go. Maybe start one. If you want to go to my, as you guys probably, both of you know that I've got a book out about money in politics, Dollar Democracy with Liberty and Justice for Some, How to Reclaim the American Dream for All. And that's exactly what that book asks you to do, is follow the money. Who's your daddy? Who's voting how, and who's it hurting? Who's benefiting and who's gaining from these votes?
One of my favorite chapters.
Oh, you've read the book. Go ahead.
It's about, I definitely read the book. I definitely recommend the book. It's very knowledgeable, very well written, and everything written that you said in that book is backed with documentation, evidence, facts, proof. It's not just opinion. But one of my favorite chapters was talking about victims of dollar democracy, and kind of reminds me of the mobilization of bias
that we talked about before. Yes.
The system kind of is set up in such a way to keep things the way they are, and in which the elite and everyone else. But I did want to mention one thing that to the audience is that healthcare is a human right. It is a human right. It's not a privilege. It's not like getting it's not a driver license. You don't have to go study and you passed the test, you get healthcare. No, it's a human right. And I also want to remind the audience that the job of the federal government, their job is to provide its people in the country with human rights and make sure that they have their access to human rights, because that's what's going to give us access to quality of life. Without a good healthcare system, then I could get health problems just for having a bad healthcare system, because it could stress me out, and stress causes heart disease. So now I'm picking up more illnesses from the stress.
Or you could lose your house from if you own a house. If anyone owns a house, they could lose their house because of a healthcare copayment. If they have $1 million cancer bill, and the 20% is their copayment, the 20% of $1 million is $20% of $1 million is $400,000 gone. You can't in America, you can't count on living the American dream to the last of your days because of this ridiculous healthcare system that's so privately funded, for profit. It goes against your concept about human rights, Tony. The Constitution talks about, in the preamble, it says, we the people establish this government, this Constitution, in order to do many things, to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to promote the general welfare, the general well-being of the people. Healthcare for all as a human right is promoting the general well-being, but putting it on a for-profit basis, where if you have the money, you can make it, like Trump, a billionaire like him can pay for anything, any kind of plastic surgery that he wants, whatever else he wants. Someone who needs a needed kidney transplant, who's a working class person, who has co-payments and deductibles in this horrendous system, will suffer and will die early or lose their house. That's what you're talking about, and you're right. That's why I feel so passionately about this universal health care. So I want to ask you this. Where does the Assembly member stand on this? Has anyone ever contacted every single assembly person, including yours, Tony, where you live, and Yoshi's assembly person who represents him here, including me? Have they called? Have you guys started calling your members of the assembly to say, do you support SB 562 or not?
It's called the loop. I'm not sure. I'm trying to come up with a clever name real quick, but some kind of loop. You call them and they put you on hold, and then they transfer you, and then they give you a different phone number, and it's like a never-ending loop of failure. Like it's like a trick.
So are you saying people should not call? They'll get ejected if they call.
No, they definitely should call. Definitely should call. But I have ran into one or two cases where I haven't been able to get through.
Yeah, but when I called a congresswoman in Washington D.C., a live person picked up the phone, talked to me for 10 minutes, and they better start doing that here, or we're gonna have to go to their office. If they don't pick up the phone, we got to go to the office. It's just in the neighborhood. It's not that far away. Okay, it could be 3 or 4 miles away from your house. Any district. A state assemblyman has an office in your district, just 1 or 2 or 3 miles from your house. No excuse.
Yeah. Because a lot of people think that, I have to go to Washington D.C.
No,
they have in your district, there is an office for every congressman, at federal level. They do have a district because they're voted out of your district, out of your city, out of your group of cities, and so there actually is, like Peter, you're saying, 1 to 3 miles away. There definitely is.
Less than 3 miles usually.
Less than that, yeah. Like I said, I just went for a walk, and I was already in some other district, and I ran into the neighboring district.
Right. If you don't mind, let me ask Yosh, if he's still there, about this tactic of getting this SB 562 to pass through the state assembly's health committee. Yosh, if we make phone calls to those local assembly people on that health committee, and their phone lines are busy, or they give you the loop, as Tony was saying, what should we do, Yosh?
Well, actually, the only time I encounter those kinds of things is when I try to call Senator Feinstein, and I've never gotten through. I've probably called Feinstein's office over a dozen times, maybe 24 times, and I've never, ever gotten hold of a real person on the other end of the line. It always rolls over into voicemail.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as our local senators and assembly members,
mm-hmm.
I've never had a problem. It might be busy once in a blue moon, but
you call back.
Except on May the 31st and on June the 1st, when the Senate was actually voting on SB 562. That was the only day that I can remember the phones being so busy, tied up in. And I don't want to discourage anyone from calling, because actually, when I did call Luke Correa's office, I actually got a call directly from him. So I may have not got a hold of someone the day that I was calling, but he did call me back within a week.
Good.
And he actually called me personally.
Because they know that in the last analysis, the donors don't have enough votes to put them in office. They just have money. The voters put them in office and can take them out. Am I right? Peacefully, of course.
The donors, that's what the donations are. They're trying to get votes.
The voters are the ones who put them in office and take them out, physically speaking, literally speaking.
The other experience that I had when I couldn't get a hold of someone, it's only because that particular person was, they were actually converting office. They were converting. I was trying to get a hold of Kamala Harris, and she was converting into her current office from her old office.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was calling the wrong office. So that's why I didn't get a hold of her.
Okay. Okay, let's do a little bit detour. Gentlemen, we got to do something. We're running out of time here. I wanted to, if you don't mind, we've been on healthcare for a long time, and I'm 100% with it myself. Every week we're going to mention the SB 562 and get you folks to talk about it. Right now, let's go back to the Democratic Party, Yosh. You or Tony have any questions about this party leadership and internal democracy, the procedural democracy, we call it, the voting process of democracy, and what happened in Sacramento between Kimberly Ellis and Eric Bauman?
Well, you're right. It's a very hotly contested election for the California Democratic Party chair. And we're hoping that Eric Bauman and the California Democratic Party will do the right thing and bring in a third party to actually review all of the voting, review all of the people who signed their ballots,
mm-hmm.
and check their credentials. Not every person who votes is necessarily properly credentialed, and that has to be, addressed. And until that happens, there's going to be a lot of disgruntlement among progressives in California.
Absolutely. And one more thing, can you tell us very briefly the basic difference between Eric Bauman candidacy and Kimberly Ellis candidacy? Who are they? What do they stand for? How are they different?
Well, first I'll speak about Kimberly Ellis. She was the CEO of an organization called Emerge California, and that's a nonprofit organization which actually recruits and trains women, particularly women of color, to run for elective office, whether it's for school board or for the city council or mayor or assembly member or state senate. She's recruited over 400 women. She's trained over 400 women.
That's a lot of people.
More than half of them actually decided to run, and 70% of the women who decided to run for office actually won their election.
Fantastic. We need more of that.
That's Kimberly Ellis. She's down there in the grassroots, empowering women to become Democratic legislators.
Yes.
On the other hand, we've got Eric Bauman, who has been the chief of staff to the last three speakers of the House. He's a very powerful person. Eric has probably been running for chair of the party. In fact, just before the election last month, he had been the vice chair of the California Democratic Party, as well as the chair of the Los Angeles County Central Committee. So he's a very powerful person, has a lot of support in LA County. He rules with an iron fist, and if you say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to vote Bauman, he will come after you and make sure that, well, this is what I've heard. I shouldn't. These are rumors that I hear. I can't.
Well, you were a delegate. You were also a delegate. But let me clarify, Yosh. You were a delegate, a state delegate elected from Assembly District 70 to the State Democratic Party convention, right?
That is correct. Okay. I was an duly elected delegate from Assembly District 70, representing Long Beach and Environs. So I was up there in Sacramento, and it was a very hotly contested race, and there wasn't a whole lot of love between the two factions,
to say the least. Yeah.
But most of the energy was coming from the Kimberly Ellis people. But anyway.
Okay, so we're just waiting on the appeal to see what happens, right? Which way the appeal goes.
Yes, that's correct.
Very good, gentlemen. Anyone else who's on there? If anyone else wants to call in for a minute, we're almost out of time here. Anyone else want to go ahead, comment?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment that this is not something new. Corruption going on. It's not something new. The people, we need to start paying attention. We need to start really looking at who we're voting for. Not just this one case. It's been going on. History repeating itself. But really, we need to start monitoring ourselves. Who we're voting for. Where are they getting their donations from? What do they really stand for? Can they really deliver what they're promising? If they took donations from corporations, can they really bring free health care? If they're taking money from the healthcare industry, private corporations, that is. So it's really, I look at more of a broad view, and we need to start voting more progressive. And getting more people in there like Bernie Sanders, and really voting for people that really can make a difference.
Excellent, Tony. Excellent. Well put. Thank you so much, everyone out there, and gentlemen. Thank you for being the guest tonight. We'll continue next week at 8 o'clock next Thursday evening, and we'll have another topic. I've been asked by some candidates for Congress if they could be on the show, so we might be inviting a woman named Wendy Reed in the next week or two. Was running in the against Kevin McCarthy, the House Majority Leader, Republican Kevin McCarthy has got a challenger this time. Wendy Reed ran last time, and she came in second out of 4 in the primary, and she ran in the runoff in the general election. She was a Democrat against Republican Kevin McCarthy, and there's going to be a rematch this time around, it looks like. So she'll be on our show either next week or the week after. So keep in mind, 8 o'clock, Economic and Social Justice with Peter Mathews. And you can just click on YouTube, Peter Mathews 11. Thank you so much, and we'll say good night. Until next time, take care.